What's up everyone, I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech, and in this video I'll be comparing the Asus Zenfone Max M1 with Redmi 6. Now before we get started, these are the specifications of both phones. Right now these are the latest phones from Asus and Xiaomi, under 10,000 rupees and above 7,000 rupees. Asus Zenfone Max M1, which I'll be calling as Asus M1 from now on, is sold exclusively on Flipkart at 7,500 rupees and comes with 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage. Now this is the only variant available, and from the day one, it is being sold at 7,500 rupees. Now coming to Redmi 6, when it was launched in India, it was priced at 8,000 rupees, but currently it is priced at 8,500 rupees for 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, and the next variant is priced at 9,500 rupees for 3GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. So with that said, there's a difference of 1,000 rupees between Asus M1 and the base variant of Redmi 6. So let's see which phone is better and which phone is a great value for money. I'll start the comparison with the design and build. Both phones are made of plastic and they are very well built. There isn't any huge difference between both phones overall in terms of design or build, but if I have to select one phone in terms of overall design and build, I like the Asus better. Now Redmi 6 weighs 147 grams and Asus M1 weighs 145 grams. On paper, difference between these two phones when it comes to weight is nothing. But when I hold both phones side by side, I felt Asus to be slightly lighter than Redmi 6. That's definitely because of the better weight distribution. By the way, Asus M1 also comes with a 4000 mAh battery, while Redmi 6 comes with a 3000 mAh battery. So when you consider the bigger battery and the smaller size, Asus is definitely doing a much better job than Redmi 6. Now when it comes to hardware, both phones come with all the basic sensors like the proximity, ambient, compass, LED notification light, fingerprint scanner and face unlock features. Both phones even have a dedicated SD card slot. Now coming to the things missing, both phones lack a gyroscope. For the price, I'll say it's okay. Now with that said, FM radio is available only on Redmi 6 and it's missing, or I couldn't find it on Asus M1. Now this is a SIM card tray of both phones. Obviously both phones support dual SIM, but only Redmi 6 supports dual 4G and dual VoLTE. So on Redmi 6 you can actually use two Geo SIMs or two SIMs in 4G or VoLTE at the same time. While on Asus M1 we can only use one SIM in 4G or VoLTE. Second SIM will automatically switch to 2G or 3G. Now this difference might not be a huge deal to many people. Now when it comes to fingerprint scanner and face unlock, once again Redmi 6 is performing slightly better than Asus. Now the difference isn't huge, it's in fact negligible. Redmi 6 unlocks faster, fingerprint scanner and face unlock. So guys, overall in the hardware department, difference between both phones isn't huge, it is negligible, but Redmi 6 is definitely better. Now coming to display, both phones sport a 5.45-inch HD Plus display with the new 18:9 aspect ratio with a 2.5D curved glass at the top. Asus M1 has 82% screen to body ratio, while Redmi 6 has 80% screen to body ratio. Once again, the difference isn't huge, but Asus has slightly smaller bezels when compared to Redmi 6. Now coming to picture quality, both phones have good sunlight legibility, good viewing angles. Individually both are pretty good, but when you compare them side by side, display on Asus is slightly to the cooler side and display on Redmi 6 is slightly to the warmer side. So when it comes to accurate color reproduction, Asus is slightly better. So in the display department, Asus is definitely better, but personally I like Redmi 6 because of the full screen gesture. Once you enable it, you can swipe up to go home, swipe and hold for recent tabs, and swipe from the left side or right side to go back. There isn't any gesture like this on Asus. So personally, for usability sake, I prefer Redmi 6 in the display department just to have a much more immersive experience. Now coming to cameras, Redmi 6 sports a dual camera setup on the rear with a 12MP primary camera with f2.2 aperture and a 5MP secondary camera for depth sensing. On the front, it has a 5MP camera with f2.2 aperture. On the rear, Asus M1 sports a single 13MP camera with f2.0 aperture, and on the front, it has an 8MP camera with f2.0 aperture. These are some sample shots. Images shot on Asus have good color reproduction and good dynamic range. They look a bit artificial and edited, but overall look better. Images from Redmi are to the warmer side and a bit dull. For close-up shots, difference between both phones isn't huge. Now when it comes to rear camera portrait mode, Redmi 6 is simply the winner. Asus M1 also has a portrait mode where it uses a single camera and software processing to give you that background blur effect, but edge detection isn't perfect and overall the portrait shot doesn't look as good as the portrait shot from Redmi 6. So for portrait shots, Redmi 6 is definitely the winner. Now coming to low lighting conditions, images from Asus look a bit dull, soft and colors look a bit washed out, while images from Redmi look more cleaner with less noise and pleasing colors. So in low lighting conditions, images from Asus have a more natural look to them and images from Redmi look more pleasing. So specifically in low lighting conditions, I prefer Redmi as the winner. Now coming to selfies, in the lit conditions, selfies from Redmi look overexposed and very bright, while selfies from Asus have good exposure control and good color reproduction. Skin tones look very consistent on Redmi, while on Asus, sometimes face looks a bit too pinkish. That's the only con in selfies. Even for portrait selfies, images taken from Asus look much better than Redmi. In low lighting conditions, selfies from Redmi look a bit overexposed and colors look faded, while selfies from Asus look cleaner with good sharpness and good skin tones. So guys, overall, cameras are better on Asus. In some cases, Redmi does perform better, especially in low lighting conditions and for close-up shots, but for the rest, Asus is performing better. Now coming to performance, Asus M1 sports a Snapdragon 430 processor with Adreno 505 GPU built using the 28nm architecture, while Redmi 6 sports a MediaTek Helio P22 processor with PowerVR GE8320 GPU built using the 12nm architecture. These are the Antutu and Geekbench scores. Purely in terms of raw performance, Redmi 6 is better, and even in actual usage, Redmi 6 is performing slightly better. For regular applications, when we open any app for the very first time, Asus is performing better, but when we are retrieving apps from memory, Redmi 6 is performing better. Even for gaming, I have noticed that Redmi 6 is performing slightly better than Asus. I played PUBG Mobile on both phones in smooth graphics settings, and once again I noticed that the game was slightly more smoother on Redmi 6. So overall, when it comes to performance, Redmi 6 is definitely better than Asus, but the difference isn't huge, especially considering the price difference of 1000 rupees. Now coming to the software section, both phones are running a skinned version of Android. On Asus M1, it's called Zen UI 5 based on Android 8.0 Oreo. On Redmi 6, it's MIUI 10 based on Android 8.1 Oreo. Both phones offer a ton of features and have their own look and feel. And here's a quick look at the interface. Now when it comes to memory management, even though both phones come with the same 3GB of RAM, Redmi 6 was performing slightly better. So guys, in the software department, you can pick the winner based on your preference. Personally, I like MIUI. Now coming to the audio department, audio experience on headset on both phones is pretty much average, nothing impressive to talk about. But when it comes to the speaker, Redmi 6 has it on the back and Asus M1 has it at the bottom. In terms of speaker loudness, both are equally loud, but because of the difference in speaker placement, Asus M1 sounds louder when you put both phones on a flat surface. When you hold both phones in hand, both phones sound equally loud. Now finally coming to the battery department, Redmi 6 sports a 3000 mAh battery and comes with a 5W power adapter inside the box. Asus M1 sports a 4000 mAh battery and comes with a 10W power adapter inside the box. Now you might think Asus has a bigger battery so it might have better battery life. Well, it isn't entirely right or wrong. Now the processor used on Redmi 6 is built using the 12nm architecture. So when compared to the Snapdragon 430 on Asus, which was built using 28nm architecture, processor used on Redmi 6 is much more power efficient. So on normal usage, you should get about 4 to 5 hours of screen on time on both phones, with Asus performing slightly better. So guys, in the battery department, Asus M1 is slightly better, but the difference between both phones isn't huge. It is negligible. So guys, to conclude, there isn't a huge difference between both phones. Sometimes Asus M1 is better and sometimes Redmi 6 is better. But overall, considering the price, bigger battery and cameras, I'll suggest you to buy Asus M1. Now comparatively, Redmi 6 is also a good phone, but at a price tag of 8500 rupees, I'll suggest you to consider other phones in the same price segment. So guys, out of these two phones, which phone do you like and why? do let me know by commenting below this video. And if you're planning to buy any of these phones, use the link in the description. It always helps the channel. And if you want us to make any specific video, tweet out to us with the hashtag AskGreedyTech on Twitter and I'll try to make it as soon as possible. I'm Nikhil from GreedyTech signing off. Have a nice day.